Okay, so we're just going to break down the basic components of perspective. Having a ruler is very handy because, although I don't think everybody needs to know how to draw a straight line, and perspective, having one really makes a difference. Now, if you don't have a ruler, anything can work. Even the side of another piece of paper can work as a ruler. You just really need a straight edge. We're not going to do any measurements, so that doesn't really matter. Now this line going here splits up the sky and the ground, and this line is called the horizon line. On the horizon line is linked what we call the vantage point. Now the vantage point really depends on where we are and where we're looking, but for the sake of just talking about the formula, we're just going to start it in the middle so we have plenty of room to work with. Now when we're doing 1 point perspective, anything we are looking at is from the front. So if we're looking at a box, we're looking at the front side of the box where we see a 90-degree angle. If we see a different angle or a different situation, then that is a different kind of perspective. So if we see things from the front with a 90-degree angle, it's 1 point perspective. Now, the principles of perspective is that things that are closer to us are larger and things that are further away are smaller. So if this is a box, then the rest of the box has to get smaller. And that's where it links back to this vantage point. So I'm going to lock this corner back to the vantage point here. Now, these lines are not going to stay all the way back because nothing that I know of actually goes all the way back to the distance. But instead, it's just going to give us those guidelines to go back to. Now, this we're talking about is a typical cube, so it has parallel sides here. So I'm going to kind of move this ruler until it looks like this line and this line are parallel. Now, I could choose wherever I wanted this to end, but this is going to now dictate the top. So then I'm going to make this line and this line parallel. Remember that parallel lines never converge. They would actually never touch and intersect, right? Right, parallel and 90-degree or right angles. Math terms. All right, our whole brain is used in the arts. Now this part we just take away. These were just our guidelines. They do not need to exist anymore. So anywhere I put a box, it's going to change the situation of what I'm actually seeing. So if I put it down further down here, again, it has to be from a 90-degree angle. Otherwise, that is a different kind of perspective. And when I suck this back, we're going to notice we're going to see a lot more of the top because it's further or closer to us. So I'm just kind of linking these things up like that. I'm going to make a decision. Should we make this long and skinny? I like to be able to see this side so I can really be aware of the fact that these are parallel. Now, if you do something like this, you're going to notice it looks pretty wanky. You're like, something is wrong, right? But sometimes you can't tell what it is. So always double check. Things should be parallel, especially if you're making structures. And then just erase those so we can see. Now, what happens if I put something on the horizon line? How is that going to change? So all of these spots where these boxes, these cubes are on what we call different planes. So this is on one sort of plane, this is on another, and this is on another. So truth be told, this box is huge because anything that is further away from us has to get smaller, and these are all about the same size. This is not very square here, is it? So that means that this must be huge because it's all the way back there. Now notice on the horizon line, do I see a top or a bottom? I do not see a top or a bottom. I'm only seeing the side, and if I flip sides, what's going to happen? Here's another box over here. Let's make this a rectangle just to mix it up a little bit. Pull these sides back. Now, perspective is one of the coolest things because once you understand it, you can draw anything and not just shapes or boxes or buildings or houses, but you can draw horses, and cars, and people and things, and they all make sense. Okay, so just the side is showing here when it's on the horizon. What happens if it goes up and above the horizon line? Speculate. Well, that means it's going to only show the bottom, right? So think about that. If you're underneath something, you would see the bottom of it. Whereas if you're above it, see now this side's super skinny, then you would see the top. I'm going to go ahead. So I'm just flipping this around, this ruler around and around. Now, what's cool is once you understand the rules, which unfortunately perspective definitely has rules. Those Renaissance artists created these rules, and if you follow them, you can make anything and it's going to make sense. So I could say, actually, I want this to be hollow or to have a hole cut through it. But what do I deal with this background space? Well, just pretend it's another cube. And I would instead see that interior space. Draw again back to the vanishing point. So if that went all the way back, it would go like that. If I wanted to have one on the side, this is interesting. You start with just the front line, and then you draw this back however far you want it to be. About equal distance here to the vanishing point. Again, all these lines, boom, 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 are all parallel. So now I have a hole in here. When I see any of the inside, if I wanted to have it a little bit thicker, I could. This line, I could show the thickness in here, like it was a cutout or something. And then these would go back to the vanishing point like that. If I want to do, this is fun because now that I have this as an idea, I can also do shapes or I can do letters. So if I want to say, make M and then an L for Miss Lager, then I can make this go back into the distance. This is a little tricky. I shouldn't have put it right above the vanishing point, but it will work. See, this is a little skinny. It'd be better if I kind of had it off to the side. This gets kind of funky, and if I know I'm going to cut them, I can actually just stop. I don't really need to draw it all the way back in actuality. If I'm going to stop the depth of this, if they're not going to go all the way back. Do I see up there? Not really. And then for the L, everything gets sucked back into the vanishing point. And then I can just decide where it's going to end. This line's parallel. This line's parallel. I'm not using a ruler because I have practiced this, but I would encourage you using a ruler for a long time because it'll just make it more accurate. I'm trying to look at these spaces to be the same thickness. And then this comes off like that, and I pull off my extras. Okay, so go ahead and try this out. Make a couple of boxes on each side of the vanishing point and up above. I would say have 5 to 6 boxes and see what happens.